Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Seems like 2021 is feeling a little bit like, Groundhog Year or something in Australia for the pandemic. It's not really funny, I'm smiling, but it's ironically like dark humor level type stuff, I guess, because we had all the we had 2020. I think there was a sense that we'd come into 2021, and it's all right. We've turned the corner, and we won't go down the vaccine rollout stuff for this episode. But now we're facing the outbreak in New South Wales, which is now becoming a lot more serious. You'd hope they'd get their numbers down, but we're recording this on a Saturday where I just watched the press conference, and another 50 cases were announced. For context, for those outside of Australia, that's obviously not a lot compared to other countries, but given the strategy that Australia's been adopting, that is a lot because of that sort of aggressive suppression/elimination strategy that a lot of the states are going for. And it just it's a really, I think it really highlights again that, this whole thing about we're still in a pandemic, people, we're not out of this. And even the sense that, we get to 80-90% vaccination of the population, it's still a thing that has to be managed. And I think that was the biggest takeaway, I think, from a lot of the reactions out of the current lockdown that's happening in New South Wales, is that a lot of people are in disbelief that this is happening. And that's the part that I found really interesting. And you really need to settle in for the long haul with this thing, because it's been just so unpredictable.
Very true. I mean, we're watching a car crash in slow motion at the moment, and we don't know how bad it's going to be. So we can hope, at least, that maybe it'll just be an extended proper lockdown for New South Wales, and over the period of a month or so we can get things back on track. But we're also facing the possibility now that they might have shut the gate a little bit late, and the Delta strain is basically looking like it's got an R value of 2.5, which is about double of, I think, what we started with the Alpha variant. So it is contagious. And if it gets out, or if it has already got out, and the contact tracers can't do anything except just go generally and tell people to lock down, which was the experience early on in Europe, then I guess New South Wales is going to be shut off from the rest of Australia.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, with the odd premier or two threatening indefinite shutting of borders with New South Wales to prevent that travel, as an example. But it's just amazing that I guess that's another feature of this whole thing, is that it's having that quick ability to adapt. I think, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach in the sense of combating this type of virus, because the virus keeps changing, and it's doing what viruses do effectively. When it's got enough opportunity to spread around the place, it's going to adapt, change. There's a classic stat, I think, was they keep advising about how many younger people are being infected this time, and some are in ICU, just to stress the point that if older people are getting vaccinated, or more of them are vaccinated, there's less opportunity to infect them. Then the virus is going to it's going to change course and try and find people that it can infect. And this whole theory about younger people being relatively safe may not necessarily be the case.
Well, that's right, and overall, it just goes to show why we needed to get the vaccination program on the road in March when it was first available. If I guess perhaps it's easy to say this with the benefit of hindsight, but there wasn't really much urgency. In fact, you'd almost argue now, with the benefit of hindsight, that the Australian sort of political system was complacent. Zero, we've managed to keep, COVID out, and so therefore we'll roll out the vaccine program in an orderly, pedestrian manner, and they've lost 3 or 4 months now. So I think if there's an upside, I guess the situation in New South Wales will probably motivate a lot of people to go out and get vaccinated now. And I just, to be quite honest, I just wish they'd throw it open and let anyone who wants to get vaccinated, get them vaccinated first. This idea that there are vulnerable groups that should get vaccinated first is certainly, it's a worthy idea, but the real need is to get the maximum amount of vaccination in the community as possible. So if you want to see people vaccinated, you've just got to open the doors and let them get vaccinated. We have 24-hour testing stations. Why can't we have 24-hour vaccination stations?
Absolutely. And a key point is that it was mentioned in the recent Melbourne lockdown, but also in this current New South Wales one, that there were instances of transmission in settings where the people that were vaccinated didn't get it, which kind of highlights the point. And speaking of vaccinations, we might just segue onto that. Plenty of discussion going around about vaccination, and it's people with their concerns, whether it's complacency, people that are super keen to get it. Younger people happy to get AstraZeneca, for instance. With a lot of the changing sort of advice that's been coming out about that. Just from my experience, I've had the 2 doses of Pfizer now, and it was interesting in reading a lot about the potential side effects and reactions, and even the anecdotal stories about how the usual sort of things like headaches, tiredness, muscle pain, nausea, whatever. There was quite a few symptoms like this that you could expect. But I think the key thing is that, yes, you may get some of that because each individual is different. I was super lucky in that I really didn't have any reaction at all. I had a little bit of muscle tightness and a little bit of a foggy head after the first one. After the second one, it might have only been 10% of that reaction, which again, the first time around, it was very, very mild. And now it's done. I don't have to worry about it now until whenever the booster shots are required, probably in 12 months time or whenever that's required. And again, not to say that anyone out there wouldn't have the same reaction or a different reaction, but it's just to show that sometimes I think with some of this media reporting, it can be a bit overblown, that because they tend to focus on the more sensationalized aspects of it, of how people will have these reactions to things. But I guess, the only downside is Bill Gates is now officially tracking me, I guess. So, so there you go.
Whatever system he's tracking you with would have to work better than Windows, though, wouldn't it?
Exactly. I hope there's not a registry hack in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I think it's interesting what you say. I mean, there's a lot of focus on these vaccinations, and I'm sure people, will feel whatever they're feeling on any given day, and just relate it back to the vaccination. All the vaccinations, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, it doesn't matter. They're all largely very safe, across, a cross-section of the population or the community. And so, I think it's a small price to pay to be vaccinated, and hopefully they'll start to, actually create some benefits for the people that step forward first and do get vaccinated. I think it's the only way forward. And I'll say it again, if you want to get to 80%, open the door and let anyone who wants to get vaccinated today. Don't make them wait 3 months because, by then we'll all have lost interest.
And if anything, going in and getting the shots each time, it really doesn't take that long. It really is an in and out procedure. So and of course, can't say it enough. Recommend everyone go and get it. All right, well. Well, we mentioned a bit of Bill Gates in there, so that might be a slight segue into our final topic, which is completely unrelated to what we've just been talking about. And it's just this concept that I think we may have touched on a few times over the years and whatever, but I think it's more prevalent than or relevant than ever. And it's how fast does your PC really need to be to meet your needs effectively. And I know, as a bit of background, I think you're in this boat as well, that, we grew up in an era where the mindset was try to get as powerful a machine as you can afford to get the
and
job
customize your machine as well, Ben.
Yes.
Customize your machine to optimize its performance.
Exactly right. That meant, popping the lid, swapping out cards, doing the whole
putting in extra RAM. I didn't get enough CPU. I'll just put in I'll double my RAM.
And I kind of miss those days in a way. It feels like I'm a mechanic that doesn't have his hands dirty anymore, because I used to be able to do all of that stuff. But in today's,
and the joy of adding your own external hard drive, into your tower. Where's that gone?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think is so amazing. It really is kind of a reflection of how amazing the technology is today, that these concerns are not even really something that you have to be conscious about, because effectively, maybe I'm more broadly speaking here, but you could probably, anything you say, if we stick with laptops, for instance, anything that's probably over $500-600 is probably going to satisfy the average user's needs. Now, the qualification is always, if you're doing something more high-end, and high-end typically falls in the range of video editing, 3D animation, or gaming, you're probably going to have to do a bit more research into, getting a system that actually delivers on what that needs to do. But for everything else, I just, like, you pretty much really thinking about aesthetics and, whether or not the keyboard works well rather than anything else.
Well, it becomes important when, really what's inside the laptop doesn't matter that much anymore. And I think it's probably, we've spoken about this before, but you're right, it's been heading this way for a long time. And so, as in your experience, keyboards matter.
Exactly. And I think this is like an effect of the mobile device revolution, I guess, with smartphones, is that I think with the introduction of the iPhone and then everything that came out after it in terms of not only just subsequent iPhones, but also Android phones and whatever else that has come out, you don't really hear about what's inside it. In terms of the chip, I mean, yes, Apple will, devote their 5 minutes in the presentation when they launch a new phone to say, "Oh, we've got the A15 or A14 chip, and it's 50% faster than the last one." But no one's really paying attention to it, because what they really care, because it just works so well and has been working so well for such a long time. And again, I'm using the iPhone as an example, but you can pick whatever smartphone you want on the mid to high range, that they all just work so well that you don't even think about it. All you're caring about is, does it take good photos? Can I read my email on it? If you do that, can I do messaging? And without it not, and making sure that it works properly, you're not thinking about the actual tech specs anymore. And I think that's kind of translated over to the PC and the Mac, I guess, for lack of a better term. You don't have to think about these things anymore.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that did make me chuckle, because I hadn't really thought of it before, was when I was looking through that article on the basic specs that you need for a laptop, for instance. I thought, well, actually, my phone has those basic specs.
Yep.
It's got 3 gig of RAM, and it's about a 1.2 gigahertz processor. And I mean, obviously, it's a mobile device, so the processor isn't quite like a CPU you'd find in a laptop, but still, you think, well, yeah, and as you just pointed out, your phone really does everything your laptop does. It's just a format it's not as versatile. But you can edit on your phone. You can type out an essay on your phone if you want.
Wouldn't be a pleasant experience, but I guess you can. Can you imagine that, just hooking up a Bluetooth keyboard to your phone so you can bash something out? But you can.
I used to do it just using the on-screen keyboard. So.
Exactly. Just wanted to finally touch on one last thing. We were talking about Windows 11 in the last couple of weeks, and I did manage to install the Windows 11 ARM version on the M1 Mac. Apparently not officially supported because Parallels still hasn't released a version update that exactly targets Windows 11, but it works perfectly fine. I really do like it, but again, I guess it comes down to the fact that they have streamlined it in a way that makes it's still Windows. So don't get me wrong, it's still the Windows experience, but they're becoming very similar to each other. Like the whole center taskbar, the centered icons are a feature of other OSs. The more simplified menus and easy to find things. So it seems like they've taken an approach of, instead of having 100 different ways to do the same thing, they only have 10 now. They seem to have been really stripping a lot of that stuff out. So I think it's a positive step forward, but I'm just concerned that during the preview period, when they start getting, user feedback or whatever, that they start throwing all this stuff back in again.
That's always the temptation, isn't it? More features or less features, I think I wish actually they'd start from scratch again and then add them back in later versions. But, my guess is that the start button's still going to move back to the left. Give it 12 months.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, you've got the option to move it back to the left now anyway. So if you really like it.
There you go. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we might wrap it up there, Steve. Interesting times between, with what's going on in New South Wales, and I guess we'll just see what's happening next week too, if they manage to get on top of it.
Yeah, we will, I guess. For what it's worth, you've had your shots and I'm off to get my shot today. So let's just hope that everyone else follows suit. If you can, go and get vaccinated.
Absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices. And we greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.